Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. For those of you just joining, for the past week we've been working on building our own virtual environment. This is going to be a place that we can demonstrate concepts before we push them out to production. Everybody deserves, to have a place that they can do whatever they want to do on before they actually push it out. Because sometimes this helps, it could save you a whole lot of time, like in trying to figure out something. But if you have something that you can first practice your things on before you push it out, that's great. So we started the process with creating a bootable USB of Microsoft Hyper-V 2019 operating system on it. So the second video which I did was installing the Hyper-V on a server that I have. Now the third part is initializing the Hyper-V manager, on your client computer, so that you can be able to connect to the Hyper-V server, which is all command line. So in this case, we're going to need to have a Hyper-V manager installed on the client computer. And from there, you need to also make sure you do some basic configuration on the server. So I was able to complete some basic configuration on the server. So I'm going to take my time and take you through the basic configuration that I had done. So as you can see, let me make this a little bigger for you. Okay, so I was able to configure a remote desktop and enabled it for all clients. So that was one of the very first things I did. Let me make it a lot bigger. Okay, perfect. So followed by assigning it an IP address, a local IP address. Please just verify the IP address. You have to press the number 8. And then it's going to tell you what the IP address for the system is 192.168.1.3. That was what I assigned to it. So the only other thing I had to do was connect a network interface card, not a networking server, like a network adapter code, like an internet code, okay, on my client computer to the server, so that I could set up a peer-to-peer network. Okay, so in doing so, I was able to come up with, let me show you where I did the other part of the configuration. So in here, I was able to have an additional network adapter which I configured an IP address on it, so that you see they can all be on the same network. If you observe 192.168.1.2, this is the .2 for the client and .3 is for the server. There's no default gateway. I don't have any router in here. So okay, so this allowed me to be able to connect to the server through remote desktop. So you see that I was able to connect to remote desktop 192.168.1.3 and to the server. So on here, we're going to name our PC. It's good to have a name for your PC. So to do that, just need to press the number 2. So first, let me press enter on a blank and press the number 2. So then I can now enter my name. I want the name to be Sandbox. Okay, enter. And the name of my computer is going to change and it's going to restart. So I'm going to wait for the server to restart. And when the server comes back on, then I'll be able to connect to the server again through the remote desktop connection, and everything will be perfect going forward from there. Okay, so but also while we wait for the server to turn on, let me take you through some of the things that we need to do to be able to get the Hyper-V manager pulled up. So you need to understand that on your client computer, you have to make sure that you have Hyper-V Manager enabled on your program. So let's go to Control Panel and then check over there. So click on Programs and then click on Turn on Features on or off. Once you have that on and off, make sure that Hyper-V here is turned on. And also please expand it and make sure that Hyper-V management, Hyper-V platform and Hyper-V benefit tool, both of them are checked as well. Then you click on OK, and then you should be all set. There's nothing, I didn't make any changes, so I can just cancel that. So that is one of the things we need to do. If we are able to do that successfully, then on here, on the PC, if you just type Hyper-V, you're going to see like there's an Hyper-V manager shows up on your client computer. So our goal is to be able to connect the server that we just installed, to connect it to the Hyper-V manager interface to enable us like install like virtual machines, like install the server and then maybe two servers and two client machines. That's my goal. I'm going to have two servers installed on this this hardware server or physical server. I'm going to install two virtual servers and then two client Windows 10 operating system on it. So, but remember, this particular PC that you see here is for the local client, but I am not going to use that. I'm going to even remove that from this place. Okay, so that means that we're waiting for our server to turn back on so that we can connect to it remotely. So let me see by now if it is on or not. So I'm going to go back and check. So type remote and click on remote here, and then try to connect and click on connect and type the password. I created a password. If you watch the first video, all of this is going to be like a continuation for you. So it's like our server is back on. There you go. So our server actually is back on, as you can see. So we have a name for a sandbox, and we do have remote management enabled, we have remote desktop enabled, we have IP address on it. So this is good. So the next thing we need to do is I'm going to minimize this and then go to your Hyper-V manager on your client computer, right click on it and click on connect server. And this time it's not the local PC, it's what? The server that we have an address for, 192.168 .1.3. Now, one of the things you need to do is make sure that you also click on connect as a user. What user? The user that you set up on that server. So I created a user, so please use the local administrator account. To do that, you have to press a dot, a backslash, and an administrator. Then you type the password for that. Please remember, this credentials is for the server that you connected to, for the 192.168.1.3. This credentials is for that. And click on remember, okay, and click on connect. The errors are going to help us troubleshoot what we need to do. Okay. Okay, it came back with an error saying that an error occurred while attempting to connect to server 192.168.1.3. Check that the virtual machine management system that is running, we're sure of that, and that you are authorized to connect. We are authorized as well. So now they're saying that the computer 192.168.1.3 could not be resolved. So this is a DNS issue. So make sure that you type the machine name correctly and that you have network access. So one thing we're going to go back to do is to make sure that we go into our host configuration to make sure that we do have check that. So go to systems, go to this PC, then from there you're gonna go to from there you're gonna go to users. I think the users is Windows actually. Windows, then drivers, possibly drivers, system 32. Let's go to system 32, then drivers, then etc, then we are going to modify the host configuration file so that we can attach it so they can be able to resolve. So here we're going to click on edit or open with notepad, and then I'm going to just attach a host name. So I'm going to give 192.168.1.3 space sandbox. Okay, so save the file. Did was I right click on this, I right click on it and open with, but before I did that I had to right click on it and go to properties and make sure that the security features, the user are given the permission to modify it and write the file. So I checked these other permissions to be able to allow me to save. So now I was able to add the user, I'm able to add the IP address of my server and the name. So this time it should be able to resolve. So I'm going to close out of here, close out of there, and now pull up my server one more time. So go to my server manager. Let's see, refresh. Hold on, I think I deleted this thing. Sorry, here. So right click on the Hyper-V manager, right click on Hyper-V manager and click on connect to server, and then here you enter the IP address 192.168.1.3. So 1.3 here, and you have to set the username you are connecting with, and this is the username of the server. So /administrator. This is to tell the computer this is not a domain user, it's a local admin credentials administrator. And click on remember and OK. And click on OK. Okay, perfect. Now one thing leads to the other. So after making sure that we have the host name and the IP address should be able to resolve, now here we go, it's asking for another error. So it's saying that this computer is not configured to allow delegation of user credentials. Do you want to allow delegation of user credential to Sandbox? I said yes. Again, it keep popping up, and it will keep popping up unless we fix something. So here I have a command we need to enter on the server. So let's enter the command. The command is saying that Enable-PSRemoting. Okay, so we're gonna enable this and then Enable-WSManCredSSP Role server. We need to do that on the server. So let's go to the server. Let me copy this first, or bring the server up and minimize it. So on the server, I need to enter these commands. Okay. The first command is PowerShell. Let's launch PowerShell. Is launched. Now we can enable the command. So enable PS remoting. Press enter. Enable-PS remoting. So we're waiting. Okay, that command has been accepted. So the next command we're going to enter is Enable-WSMan credentials SSP role server. Yes. So it's going to say that, okay, CRED authentication allows the server to accept user credentials from a remote computer. If you enable CRED SSP authentication on the server, the server will have access to the username and password of the client computer if the client computer sends them. For more information, see Enable-WSManCred help topic. So I'm going to press Y to say yes, I want to enable that. Okay. So that has been done. Now let's go back and see yes to see if it's going to allow us. Okay, so I'm going to say nope and then close and try one more time. Connect IP address 192.168.1.3 and then choose the credentials, set./administrator password is, remember, okay, and okay, yes. So I'm going to launch PowerShell. So let me launch PowerShell and PowerShell. Hold on, I just like to right click on the start and then click on PowerShell admin. Let me launch PowerShell and then run the command from there. So I'm going to start -service -name, okay, win. Okay, the service has started. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the item, set-item wsman /local host /client /trusted host hosts -value sandbox. That's the name of the server that we want to make sure we indicate to the client that the server, which is our sandbox, is a trusted host. So enter yes to that, and from there we stop the service. So stop -service -name run. Perfect. So we're going to go back and try to sign back in on this. Okay, so one more time, connect to server, then enter the IP address of the server 192.168.2.1.3 and then set up the connector, which is our /administrator of the server, and the password is, all right, and click on remember and click on connect. Okay, yes. Okay, it's saying that CredSSP authentication is currently disabled on the local client server. Oh, okay. Okay, so let's put the username, the host name in place of what? The server address. Because, hold on a second. Sandbox. Connect, sets user /administrator. Yep. And there you go. So another error. So first, let me roll back. So first, after we ran the trusted host command, we indicated that our trusted host is a name, not an IP address. So you see, I said it's a what? A sandbox, not an IP address. But I entered an IP address in there, so that's why it said that there's no cred SSP. So that is what we need to do. So unless we had indicated that, let's say another value equals the IP address, then it would have recognized that. But now there is a new error. The error is saying that the operations on computer sandbox failed. Okay, and give you all the necessary complications, and it's telling us exactly what we need to do to resolve this issue down here. It said we should go into our local group policies and click on what? Computer configuration, administrative template, system, cred what? Credential delegations. Then allow first delegations what? And then assign this WSMan information in there. So I'm going to go just follow that steps. So I have to click here and type what? GP edit, group policy edit .msc. So that's going to launch our group policy editor, our local group policy editor. Okay. So with that opened, you have to go to the computer configuration, administrative templates, system, and credential delegation as instructed. Okay, then it said allow fresh what? Credentials. Then from here you might have to now click on show, and now let's change this information. Okay, there's a sandbox, but this is okay, sandbox. So I'm gonna remove, okay, I'll leave this one. Okay, I'm gonna add a new WSMan. So WSMan / then the address of that 192.168.1.3. I already have one for sandbox itself. So okay, and apply. Okay, here do the same thing. Make sure we have WSMan. So we have to do for first credentials and NTLM only server authentication. So / sandbox, the name, the username of our server, and then the IP address as well. / 192.168.1.1.3. So we have to indicate the host name of our server. So WSMan / sandbox. That's the username, the name of what? Our server. And we also have WSMan and the IP address of the server as well. So this will allow any of them to be authenticated onto the server. So now we're going to try one last and final time. So right click, connect to server, enter the IP address of the server 192. Sorry, I'm going to use the username sandbox. The name of the server is sandbox, and the IP address is 192.168.1.3. The reason why I'm using the username, the host name instead of the IP address is because when I was permitting the SSP cred, the trusted host, I chose the username. If I have added another command with the IP address, that would have made it perfect for that. Any of them could have been used, but in this case, we're just going one way. Okay, so click on connect and set the user /administrator, and then the username, the password, connect, okay, and okay. And there you go. We have our Hyper-V server connected. We have our Hyper-V server connected. So here we are. There's no any computer. There's no any. We don't have any virtual machine installed yet. So that's gonna be our next topic on. It's gonna be on how to now install a server inside our virtual lab. We're gonna add a VM, like a virtual machine. I'm gonna have 2 servers installed. I'm gonna have 2 clients installed so that we can set up a very perfect domain network environment, that we can practice things, we can do whatever that we want to do, we can test it out, especially on the server client side, deploying group policies and stuff like Active Directory. We're going to do all kind of cool stuff on this particular server. So now we are so perfectly. Let's review what we just did. This is very, very important for a new person that is connecting to this. So first and foremost is you have to, once you have your Hyper-V server installed, and this server is not connected to a domain. If it is connected to a domain, it's a lot easier, less headache. But if it is not connected to domain, that means that you have to establish a peer-to-peer network between your client computer and the server. And remember, this server is all what? Console based, so that's where the headache comes. So once you establish the peer-to-peer network between the client and the server, in this case my client is going to be my PC, who I'm going to connect a network cable on it and then connect the other end of the network cable to the server, then assign them an IP address that's going to be within the same block, okay, that within the same network or within the same subnet. Okay, once we have that done, then the next thing that we're going to do is make sure that you check or you work on your hosts inside your local PC. Check the host names resolution, like make a DNS, like modify the DNS resolution file in the system, and this file is always located under C. It's always located under C. Let me go to computers. Let me show you. This is very important. You have to go to C. So under C, then you go to what? Windows. Then under Windows, you have to go to System 32. Then from there, you go to drivers. Then from there, you look for what? etc. And then this host file, you right click on the host file and then click on open with and select notepad. But believe me, before you can be able to edit this file, make sure you right click on it and click on properties to adjust the permissions on the system. So make sure that the users that are signed in here have the permission to what? Make some changes. If you don't do that, it won't be able to save it after you make the changes. So now once you open this file up on Notepad, you have to make sure that you enter the DNS resolution information. So put the server IP address and then the username and the name and the host name. Okay. Once you have that, just type the IP address and 1 space and then or 2 spaces and type the name. You should be fine. Then you click on what? File and then what? Save and close it. So once we do that, the next thing that we need to do is go to the server, go to our server, our remote server. Once we're on the server, make sure that you enable PS-Remoting. Enable PS-Remoting and enable WSMan credentials. Once you enable these 2 commands, I'm going to put these commands in the description. So if there's a command you're missing, please check the description for the command structure. And once you've done that, the only other most important thing that you need to take care of is make sure that now you go to the local group policy editor. Then under there, make sure you click on administrative template under the PC configuration. So under the PC configuration, under the computer configuration, look for administrative template. Under administrative template, look for system. Then under system, look for credentials delegation. Once you are in there, click on allow first delegation and click on show over here, and make sure that you write the command wsman / the name of the server, again wsman the IP address of the server. Once you've done that, also make sure that on your client computer, make sure that you have the command start service - the name WinRAM over here. Make sure you have this command entered, start service command entered. Then after, you have to set your client computer as a trusted host, so to the what, to the server. Okay, so once this is the command you need, I'll add that in the description as well. So once you get that in place, I can tell you that you can try and you should be all ready to go. So now we are so happy that we get our server up and running. It's connected to our client computer. Now I can right click and click new virtual machine and start creating my virtual machines. So we're gonna leave the lesson here. And please, if this content was very helpful for you in figuring out how to set up the client to server relationship as far as Hyper-V Manager setup is concerned, please click the like button and also subscribe to the channel for more videos that will be very helpful for you in the future.